Fun fact: I applied for and got accepted to have a job at Pretty Green in Birmingham.
Really?
And then just before I started, they didn't need anyone anymore.
They sacked you off. Right,
I got
that's it. I'm
sacked before I
definitely not going.
started.
You got
Yeah, I heard it was
pre-sacked.
Liam personally said no.
I don't want him. Don't want
He
him.
hasn't got enough.
I heard he likes the OCs and all that shit. Oh, nah. Not proper music. Not proper geezer music.
It was exactly like that, yeah.
Unwaved Network presents Rambles N Records.
Poppadoms or bread?
Hey?
Poppadoms or bread?
Poppadoms or just normal bread?
I guess you've never listened to Off Menu podcast
No.
with James Acaster and Ed Gamble.
No, but that sounds like something James Acaster would say.
So each week they have a guest. If they were in this dream restaurant, what would their starter be? What would their main be? What would the dessert be? What would they drink and stuff or whatever? And then, so after they introduce the guest and have like a little bit of a chit chat, like James Acaster will always try and catch the guest off guard and just shout, "Poppadoms or bread! Poppadoms or bread!"
That would put you off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, naan bread. Or like a loaf of Warburtons.
You get like a bread basket, for example, at an Italian restaurant, maybe. This is like the appetizer before the starter. It's just like the
Olives.
bread basket that they bring out. That's not poppadoms or bread.
Prawn crackers. No, I go for
Prawn
poppadoms.
crackers, poppadoms.
Yeah. What about you? I'm hoping when you say poppadoms, they're not coming out dry.
To be nice and crispy.
Yeah. But you know the onions and the sauce and the things that with the little spoon.
Yeah.
And I need that as well.
Yeah.
I can't.
Well, of course. Yeah.
All right, cool.
I would take bread. I'd go for bread.
Okay. What's the bread got on it?
It's just a bread roll, like a nice warm.
Oh, if it's warm. Okay, now you got me. Yeah.
I would probably go for wholemeal though, so I'd make it a bit more.
No. And you've lost me. Okay. Well,
maybe seeded.
I can't imagine white seeded bread. That'd be weird.
Yeah, it's the real bread. It's the real deal. White bread is fake bread.
I know.
White bread is where they take the bread out of the bread and they just give you this like shell that resembles bread.
Tastes good. Right. Welcome to Rambles N Records. Here on the Unwave Network. We are here for another episode today. We're going to be talking about the exciting news of Oasis getting back together. But we're not just going to talk about that. We're going to be talking about Victorious Festival 2024 that happened recently in Portsmouth. And we're going to be talking about some records. And we'll be popping them on the playlist. Let's get into it.
Rambles N Records.
Okay, so unless you fell down a well, you're probably aware of the recent news of the reunion of Oasis that's going to be happening next year.
Mm-hmm.
So after 16 years, man, they've officially confirmed a tour in 2025. It's marking the first time the band will perform together since they split in 2009. They're going to be doing a 14-date tour in the UK and Ireland, which includes stops in Cardiff, London, Manchester, Edinburgh, and Dublin. So yeah, that's pretty cool. The uproar from it and how everyone's reacted has been just crazy. I can't imagine how much the tickets are going to cost. I'm very interested to know how much the tickets are going to cost. Like, I really just want to know that now. I wonder if there's like a platinum package where you get, some Adidas Gazelles and you get to have a pint with Liam Gallagher, or you get to you get a pretty green shop voucher and, I don't know, free Oasis style haircut.
I saw a post the other day, a band playing on the main stage. I think the same time as Liam was at Reading and was he at Leeds, Reading and Leeds this year?
Oh, Liam, he was at Reading.
I think one of the younger bands that were playing on the main stage had like messaged him on Twitter or something and saying, "Oh, do you want to grab a pint afterwards?" And he was like, "I'd love to, whoever the fuck you are, but I've got to be in bed before midnight."
He always has been very outspoken, so that doesn't surprise me.
I imagine the band would be more disappointed if they've got anything less out of him, to be fair.
Yeah, like, you know what, mate? Yeah, I will join you for that pint, bro. You know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You'd be like, what the fuck has happened to Liam Gallagher? Oh,
Yeah,
my
no
God.
thanks.
No
Take
thanks.
it back.
To be fair, that's a good point, man. Like, stick to your guns. Stay true to yourself. He's just got to always act that way, so fair enough. But yeah, man. So it is exciting news. It made me sort of dive back into the history of the band a little bit during their come up in the early 90s. And when I was researching them and that, I did think about the lineup, and I was thinking about, you've got the Gallagher brothers, and then you've got other members within the band that came and went. And with that, you do have the original drummer who basically got sacked. So I want to talk a little bit about Tony McCarroll. He was the original drummer in like the original lineup of Oasis, and then he was replaced in 1995 with Alan White. And there's a bit of backstory with it. Obviously, Oasis aren't strangers to controversy and kind of conflict. And it got me thinking that I'm going to run through a timeline, if you like, of the band. Oasis were originally called The Rain. They formed under the name The Rain with Tony McCarroll, the original drummer. The lineup also consisting of Paul Bonehead Arthurs on guitar, Paul Gwigsy McGuigan on bass, and Chris Hutton on vocals/keyboard. The band kind of struggled to gain traction in the Manchester music scene at the time. But then, in 1991, in waltzes Liam Gallagher, the band then get renamed to Oasis, inspired by a venue listed on an In Spiral Carpets tour poster.
What did you say previously? The name was inspired by what?
Basically, the name change came from Noel was a roadie for the band In Spiral Carpets. And he had a poster. I don't know if he had a poster in his room, but there was a poster that In Spiral Carpets were playing at the Oasis Leisure Centre in Swindon.
Okay.
So I think Liam just happened to be looking on the poster and he was like, oh, Oasis, that's a cool word. Yeah. Okay. So they went with that. And then basically Noel joins the band and Oasis is born. They play their first gig at the Boardwalk Club in Manchester, August 14th, 1991, whilst Noel was still a roadie for In Spiral Carpets. In 1993, they signed to Creation Records, pivotal moment in the career for them to get in the studio, write their first album. Their debut album, Definitely Maybe, was to widespread acclaim, like a really iconic debut album in terms of bands at that time. Notable tracks on that are Supersonic, Shaker Maker, Live Forever, Cigarettes and Alcohol, Rock and Roll Star, like all the songs you just expect from Oasis really were on that album. And Tony McCarroll, the drummer, was on that original lineup, and I think his drum style is very distinctive. You hear it with like songs like Supersonic, like first song on that album, it literally starts with the drums, and I know it's a very basic beat what he's playing, but it's got this rigidity that I think is really unique, and you can kind of hear it in that sound. But the problem is that tensions rose between Noel Gallagher and Tony, because I think, in short, I'm paraphrasing, it was like, mate, your drums are shit. Your drums, you're just not good enough. Noel had some beef with Tony. Tony was just there, mind his own business, and it seems like Noel just had a little bit of an issue with him. Tony's drumming was increasingly criticised, leading to the heated exchange where he was reportedly told to fuck off by Noel, basically. Tony's final performance with Oasis was at Top of the Pops for a performance of their first number one hit, some might say. He was subsequently replaced by Alan White, who came in, did his thing, But yeah, so that left Tony on his ass, right? So you don't really know the backstory of it. Tony might have done some shit, I don't know. But in what I've seen, I mean, there's a lot of just kind of, I've seen some stuff about, while they were drunk, they signed some contracts or something. And then from there, those contracts said that Noel and Liam own the rights to stuff. And like, Noel can sack anyone in the band at any given moment for any given reason. And I don't know. But then the aftermath of that is that obviously Oasis go on to be more successful and release more albums. Tony's there like, where's my money? Because he's not getting paid. Then in 1999, he hires someone called Jens Hills. Now, Jens Hills was the lawyer who won Pete Best £2 million from the Beatles, who was the original drummer in the Beatles. So obviously, he must have thought like, yo, who can I call? Oh, shit, this happened with the Beatles. Yeah, I'll call him. Is he still knocking about? Yeah. Called the same guy and
Oasis
attempted...
basically think they are the Beatles, don't they? So it makes
Well,
sense.
exactly. So it's just history repeating itself. Tried to sue Oasis for 18 mil, right? McCarroll argued he was entitled to his share of the band's 5-album deal with Creation Records. The lawsuit sought to set a legal precedent for compensation on the albums McCarroll hadn't played on. That's quite important, which is, again, is a bit of a grey area, but, whatever. The case was settled out in court for 550 grand, which is a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of it, like, not. And that therefore relinquished any future royalties.
He
Half a
probably
mil.
would have made more than that this year just from the news of the
Mate,
reunion.
trust me. It is a weird one and it put me in his shoes a little bit, Okay, where we at? So that was settled. Let's just fast forward all the way now to 2009. They split due to a backstage altercation between Noel and Liam at the Rock and Scene Festival in France. The incident led to the cancellation of their remaining tour and Noel's departure from the band. Cool little tidbit that I found. In 1996, they did an MTV Unplugged, but Liam was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to perform. He did that quite a bit. He was just threw his dummy at the pram and he was like, I'm not doing it. So he did that for the MTV Unplugged. You got to think with that. I mean, it's quite a big production. It's a one-time thing. You can't just, do it whenever or whatever. So Noel basically took on the vocal duties and they got it done and they released it. I've never seen it. I might give it a watch. I like MTV Unplugged stuff. But what I didn't know is that Liam was actually in the crowd and watched from a balcony drinking beer and heckled Noel the whole way through the set.
What?
That's mad at it.
I would get it, like not wanting to play, maybe if because you've got a crazy tour schedule and you just want some time to yourself. But then to have nothing better to do, but then to go and then just be a dick
Heckle.
in the crowd.
Just you could guess who did that from like a few guesses of what lead singer did that, But yeah, so basically 2025 reunion tour after 16 years. Crazy that it was that amount of time. A lot of people during that point got pissed off. Few little things that I want to point out as well is that there's apparently going to be no new music, so no new album. And here's a little something that I read as well that was a little bit weird. Okay, so some people are speculating that the reunion might be financially motivated, given that Noel has recently settled a divorce for £20 million. So it could be as simple as like, I don't want to spend that. I could just go on tour. Yeah, sod it.
Imagine.
But who knows?
Well,
not us.
Maybe he just had a moment of emptiness. He's trying to fill a void.
That's the nicer approach. That's the glass half full approach. He's yearning for some sort of emotional replacement to fill the void, but maybe not. I doubt he's going to admit that if that is the truth.
When we have him
to be
on
honest.
the podcast
Next week, explosion. No, I'm not going to do any explosions.
Don't
Okay. Another little fact. You mentioned it as well, like how relevant they still are. So they've developed like a significant following from Gen Z, basically, and despite their inactivity, they've continued to have 21.6 monthly listeners on Spotify, and
what 21.6
million.
We've probably got more than. Oh, okay. I was wondering who the 0.6 of a person was.
It was tragic. You don't want to know.
Are you eating?
A smint. I probably shouldn't be doing it on the pod. I'm sorry. It's all done now. Anyway, a little bit of a look back into timeline of Oasis, but bit of an unsung hero in the band, which I think is the original drummer. And it led me to think that this isn't the first time that these sort of things happen in bands.
If you look at Black Sabbath's last tour, the end, Bill Ward didn't play on that because I think they had fallen out. That's obviously, he was the drummer for the band, I think, for the duration of Black Sabbath's original lineup. But then, apparently they didn't treat him that well or something, the band. And then he didn't want to have anything to do with it when they did their farewell tour.
This is the problem, because you don't really know what's going on behind closed doors. You could get a very one-sided story from one of the members that's been given a big payout to say a bunch of shit, but it might not be the truth. We then make our minds up on something that might not be true. So it's an interesting concept. It also leads me to think, about, do bands have a moral obligation to get back together to give the crowd what they want? Because that's how it's felt with Oasis.
Yeah. Do they have an obligation to give fans what they want? Of course not.
When people like, I can recall 2 people off the top of my head that have gone into the public and made a bit of a issue, kicking off with something to do with Oasis not getting back together. That's Dave Grohl and Matt Healy from 1975. I can remember 2 moments in time within the last few years where they've gone, basically, in one way or another, they've gone, this is fucking stupid, stop being dickheads and just get back together and give the people what they want. And then this causes this uproar of like people going, yeah, you're right.
I can see where they're coming from a bit with it, though, with Noel and Liam, considering that they're still both active musicians. They both tour. They're still willing to be in the spotlight and do the work. They're just having a brotherly spat for like a ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah.
Which people can't really seem to understand. It's like, if you're going to be out there making music, why don't you just do the one thing that people want and not these other projects?
So that's the other side of it. Because yes, there's no moral obligation, but this one in particular, there's been nothing this petty, it seems, in the music industry. It's been just publicised in such a kind of stubborn way from both sides. Ultimately, they didn't have to do it, but it just felt like something that's been long overdue. And now that it's here, it's good. But it just led me to think of lost band members, and who knows? But yeah, you're going to be getting your ticket. You're going to be getting your Stone Island on and having a pint of Carlin and getting down to the big gig with the lads.
No, probably not. Are you?
Not now.
I imagine you're probably going to need to have signed up already like 2 years ago. Then you'll be on a waiting list. Then you'll have to win a raffle.
You'll have to have a line from Champagne Supernova tattooed on you somewhere. All of your wardrobe needs to be Liam's brand. Pretty green. Paul Weller kind of hair. Otherwise you're not getting in. Otherwise you're not fucking fan.
Fun fact, I applied for and got accepted to have a job at Pretty Green in Birmingham.
Really?
And then just before I started, they didn't need anyone anymore.
They sacked you off. Right, that's it. I'm definitely not going. You got pre-sacked.
I heard it was Liam personally said, nah.
I don't want him. Don't want him.
He hasn't got enough.
He likes the OCs and all that shit. Oh, nah. Not proper music. Not proper geezer music.
It was exactly like that, yeah.
Okay, interesting Billy fact. God.
Rambles N Records.
Tell you where I am going though. In a month's time, exactly a month's time, I'm going to Naples.
Without me?
Well, I was going to invite you on the podcast. Do you want to come to Naples?
It just feels forced now. You're just doing it on the pod because you're just trying to be nice.
No, you should come.
When is it?
But I'm going on the 28th.
28th of September?
Yep.
There is no way I can afford that. There is no way I can afford that or book it off work. You're just going for the day?
Well, I'm going for 4 days.
4 days.
I'm going to a wedding in Italy in October.
But yeah, no, that's sick, man. Fucking have a great time and get loads of like really rare records. I've seen this article about Italian disco is on the rise. You know, as far as the popularity on Spotify, the records that are being sold, just the overall hype of kind of disco scene. It's just on the rise, so get yourself down there.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like bands like New Guinea are obviously like immensely popular. They've relocated to Berlin now. Obviously, there's all that stuff I was sharing last week. But then they have just such a rich history and like so much other little stuff to find. So
Yeah.
I just ordered something off Discogs actually from that
Sick.
Vaselino video set, but I'll talk more about it when it arrives. When I listen to the whole thing.
Billy with the teaser.
Teasing.
I need a Billy tease sound effect. We really got to do something about these sound effects. Sound effects, hit us up.
Sound effects.
Not even
Sound
making
effects.
sense anymore.
I was going
Okay.
to show you a song. Maybe I can go into it now. I feel like it's a good little segue into this section. So I stumbled across the song. Maybe I want you to listen to it before I tell you when it was released.
I
Just
like
to
that.
get an idea of when you think it was released.
Yeah, man. Let's do that.
So this one is actually a Belgian song, and it's called Camino del Sol by Antenna.
Camino del Sol. I got it.
3, 2, 1.
Rambles N Records.
Yeah.
Cool, yeah?
That was nice.
Camino del Sol by Antenna. So when do you think that came out? Or at least what decade?
Early, like 2012.
It was actually 1982.
No!
30 years before you guess.
30
Yeah.
years.
And that was released on a label called Factory Benelux, which is a subsidiary or like a sister label of Factory Records.
Oh,
like
really?
Factory
No
Records
way.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah. Nah,
Yeah, really nice.
It felt like way ahead of its time.
Definitely.
Like, when I heard it, I definitely felt like it could be like some indie track from the 90s or the 2000s or something. Maybe a bit shoegazy at points, or
You're not even synth like that in 82. I don't know, you're thinking like Human League and like, I don't know, even like earlier than that, like Kraftwerk and stuff like that. That synth sounded like one of those little mini Korg, like MIDI controller things that you hear in like indie bands and stuff like that.
Exactly, it was a lot more subdued, maybe, or like it's quite minimal. Like, I guess a lot of elements of it is kind of reminiscent to like kind of compare it in some sense to something a bit like the XX or like London Grammar or something that were around about the time that you said 2012. But yeah, so apparently this Factory Benelux was kind of like this European branch that Factory Records had just to try and get some advance on like some records before tours, and they had like a couple of smaller things on there, but I don't think it was very big. They had a few bands releasing like original stuff there as well, but apparently this record just kind of got completely overlooked at the time. Interesting record from the sounds of it, and it got rediscovered by a group called Numero Group, who re-released like lost gems basically. Something on their website suggests that they might have found it in like a bargain bin for $5, and then they obviously liked it and re-released it, added some extra tracks previously unreleased by the group. And yeah, now the original pressing is fetching between 70 to 300 euros on Discogs.
Wow, that's such a good idea, man. That's such a good idea. Bringing it back to life, yeah, and kind of pumping it back into, like, say, streaming services or something like that.
Yeah,
and then
that's it, because
that appeal.
The version that's on Spotify is actually from the one from the Numero Group, the re-release. They have a couple of services, but one of the things that they do is specializing in like finding old kind of forgotten records and giving them that new lease of life, which sounds really interesting.
We should do an episode on that.
Absolutely,
sounds pretty cool.
But they re-released that in 2004, so possibly
I've seen that.
even before it might have even
the thing that we're trying to compare it to.
There's got a little story behind it.
Certain songs, they just don't belong in the time frame that they're in. That is a cool story as well, just because the idea or notion that if they hadn't have re-released it in 2004, would it have ever got noticed?
That's the thing. And how many more like other things have gone?
How more are there
under the radar? Like, and there are things that occasionally that do come to life a long time afterwards. But there must be so many that don't as well. So it just means now, every time I'm in a record store, I'm just gonna be buying everything more.
No, that's great, man. We'll go ahead and obviously pop that one on the playlist. Billy, remind them what it is again, because I've lost it now.
Camino del Sol by Antenna.
Give it a listen. It just sounds like it's from another time.
Rambles Rambles N Records.
This week I've been listening to. So this is Brian Ferry from Roxy Music. He had a pretty cool solo career as well. So this is one of his solo albums released May 6, 1977. It's called In Your Mind. Little bit of backstory on the album. Reached number 5 in the UK album charts. It did generally pretty good sales-wise in the UK. People compare it to, obviously, Roxy Music because it did have a lot of the band members in this album as well. It's released on Polydor, so there it is. It's a bit dusty, but it play well. I'm going to pick from the album Tokyo Joe. It's a very fun song. It's, as I say, it's 1977, but you're going to feel like you're in the 80s again with this one. So we're going to listen to Tokyo Joe, see what happens. 3, 2, 1.
Rambles N Records.
Yeah, there it is. Oh shit. The mic wasn't next to my face. Yeah, Brian Ferry, Tokyo Joe.
That was cool. No, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, man. It's cool, isn't it?
I don't think I've
There's
ever
a lot
listened
going on in that song.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely, but well composed and produced.
There's a lot going on. The strings, the kind of Eastern influences, disco elements in there, but it also sounds very, kind of reminds me a little bit like Talking Heads, a certain Bowie era, and worth a shout. So we'll pop that on the playlist. Brian Ferry, Tokyo Joe, from the album In Your Mind. Hell yeah.
Rambles N Records.
Next up, I've got an absolute banger. In fact, no, I'm gonna end with that one. Next up, we've got another banger. Bit of Saxon, bit of old school UK metal, but like biker metal. This is nothing more biker
Denim
metal
and
than this.
leather.
Denim and leather. You can't get any more. I keep saying 70s metal and it's fucking released 1981. Why haven't I've just done this in reverse now? Some of it sounds, in my opinion, 80s and 70s. Some in my opinion sounds 70s, but it's actually 81. So yeah,
it was very cruel of me to play that game with you earlier, playing guess the year.
This episode's been very much like, what year is it? Oh, but yeah. So this album, Saxon, Denim and Leather, it was released October 27th, 1981, on Carrera Records. Reached number 11 in the UK album charts. It's pretty good for a heavy metal album. Sold over 100,000 copies in the UK initial release. And yeah, it's sort of compared to Guess Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, sort of straight metal style around that time. But it's good, man. Even if you're not into heavy metal, Saxon's good. If I was to say, oh, I'm not into metal, who shall I play without being offended? Put some Saxon on.
I don't think I've ever actually listened to Saxon, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do, Bill. I'll put a song in the playlist, and you could go ahead and check out our playlist that we have.
I will. Yeah. Exactly.
And
that's what it's there for.
This is what. What? So wait, I could just check out the playlist and discover new music
in the show notes. Yeah, go to the show notes.
In the show notes. Yeah, we can't. Yeah. We're still not well known enough for you to search it for some reason. So just go ahead and check it out in the show notes. We'll go ahead and put first song on the album, Princess of the Night. I'm going to put that on. Very up-tempo. Sick. Okay? So, yeah.
Rambles N Records.
And then lastly, I've got an absolute banger, Bill. Okay?
Yeah.
I've got an absolute top-tier album going off the back of Saxon as well. We're in a similar world. We got Black Sabbath, Master of Reality. This album is what got me into playing drums in like a doomy metal band, particularly Into the Void. Made me realise just how good metal music was. And yeah, it's also got Sweet Leaf on it. It's got Children of Grave on it. It's got Solitude on it. Probably my favourite Sabbath record. I'm glad to have a copy. It's a little bit beat up, but what do you expect?
Did you get it recently?
It is. No, I've had this for a little while now. So this was initially released July 21st, 1971 on Vertigo Records. Some pressed in, I think, Vertigo Records in the UK and Warner Brothers in the US. But then there was a company called WWA Records, and they were a part of NEMS, which started this kind of like in the early 70s. I guess it kind of reminds me of like now, that's what I call music a little bit. But it was still officially released. But now that's what I call Black Sabbath. It was this thing where it didn't really take off anyway. But this is one of those copies. So, but what's cool about this record is there's actually a misprint on there. So you're not going to be able to see this, Bill. But so on the record, you can see here track 1, Sweet Leaf. I don't know if it's going to focus. Come on. Yes. Okay, track 1, Sweet Leaf, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is probably, it's one of their most well-known songs. Everyone knows Sweet Leaf. And then show you the cover, and on the back of the cover, we got, hang on, Sweet Life.
Bonus track?
Yeah.
Or is
It's
it?
like the Frank Ocean song. But, so, I think that's cool, man. I love misprints. But yeah, that album is so sick. I'm going to put Into the Void on the playlist because it's one of my favourite songs of all time. It's fucking sick. So, just, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, man. What else? Sweet Leaf. So Sweet Leaf, you want to know what Sweet Leaf was? It was a weed. And obviously it has a key influence in the creation and evolution of doom metal and stoner rock, I would say as well. Decent album. And those are my picks.
Nice. Solid picks.
Thank you.
I'm going to check out Saxon after this.
Yeah, please do. Saxon is sick. Yeah, I think we should wrap it up there.
Add one song quickly to the playlist.
Yeah.
Just on the topic of Naples. And I missed it out last week, I think, and I had meant to add it then. So I'll do it now. A song called Money Wonder by Mystic Jungle. So Mystic Jungle is one of the co-founders of the periodic record label, quite influential in the Naples scene. And I think they have signed to them Pablo. And,
Pablo?
Pablo? Yeah.
Pablo! Purdue.
Perudu. Yeah. So yeah, Money Wonder is one of the tracks out on Periodica by one of the co-founders who goes by the stage name Mystic Jungle.
Sick. That's going on the playlist.
On the playlist.
Yeah, man.
Check it out. Check
it out in the show notes because we're not well known enough yet for it to actually be shown into your search results. We're still working on that. I'm sorry, but go into the show notes today. See you next week.
See you next week.